Camilla got the crown. Everyone saw it happen. The cameras were there. The whole world watched. But there is something the cameras never showed you. There is a vault inside the British royal family that nobody talks about. Not the crown jewels, not the official collection, something private, something hidden. The pieces Elizabeth loved so deeply she would rather take them to her grave than let the wrong hands touch them. For 20 years she moved them, one by one, in silence, in secret, always to the same place. Elizabeth had two kinds of jewelry. The official pieces, grand, historic, imposing, the kind you wear because your position demands it. She gave Camilla access to those. The Greville honeycomb tiara, massive, dazzling. It looked impressive from a distance. But then there were the other pieces, the private ones, the ones tied to Philip, to her parents, to the moments that mattered to her as a woman, not as a queen. Those pieces had nothing to do with rank or title or tradition. And every single one was quietly, deliberately given to Kate. Not once, 5 times. Let's go through every single one. The first piece is the most intimate thing Elizabeth ever owned. We go back to 1946. The war is barely over. Philip is a young prince with almost no money. But he is completely in love with the future Queen of England, and he wants to propose. To get diamonds, he needs his mother to make a sacrifice. Princess Alice of Battenberg takes apart her own tiara, a piece made by Fabergé, a personal gift from the last Tsar of Russia, and hands the diamonds to her son. Philip takes those diamonds to a London jeweler, and he designs a bracelet for the woman he loves. 3 large square-cut diamonds in platinum. Sleek, modern, beautiful. Made entirely from his mother's sacrifice and his own love for Elizabeth. She wore it throughout their entire 73-year marriage. Every important occasion, every quiet moment. It was the physical proof of everything Philip felt for her. Now think about what it would mean for Camilla to wear that bracelet. The bracelet built from Russian royal diamonds, designed by Philip's own hands, for the woman he spent his whole life beside. It would feel like a trespass on something sacred. Elizabeth would never allow it, and she never did. Camilla joins the family in 2005. 5 years pass. 10 years. The bracelet stays with Elizabeth, never offered, never glimpsed on Camilla's wrist. And then October 2015, a state banquet at Buckingham Palace. Kate walks in. On her wrist, the bracelet Philip built from Romanov diamonds, the one Elizabeth wore throughout their entire marriage, the most intimate thing she owned, on Kate. Like it had always belonged to her, because as far as Elizabeth was concerned, it had. That was the first piece, but it was nowhere near the most devastating. The second piece is the one that tells you the most about Elizabeth as a person. February 1979. Elizabeth is on a state tour of the Middle East. At a formal dinner in Dubai, Sheikh Rashid presents her with a suite of sapphire and diamond jewelry made by Asprey in London. Elizabeth sees them, and she gasps. This is a woman who had received gifts from hundreds of world leaders, who had worn some of the most valuable jewelry on earth, who had grown up surrounded by the crown jewels of Britain. She had seen everything, and these sapphires still made her gasp out loud. She loved them so much, she had them privately redesigned, shortened the necklace to suit her own style, had the leftover sections turned into a second pair of earrings, had the ring transformed into a matching bracelet. She put her own fingerprints all over these pieces, made them completely and entirely hers. Then she wore them at her most important events for 3 decades, and in 2009, they disappeared. 12 years of silence. Camilla joined the family in 2005. State event after state event. The sapphires Elizabeth had gasped at, the ones she had loved enough to redesign herself, never offered to Camilla. Not once. Not a hint. Elizabeth was waiting. May 2021. An NHS event at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh. A drive-in cinema for healthcare workers. Kate arrives. On her ears, Elizabeth's Dubai sapphire earrings. The ones not seen publicly in 12 years. The ones that made a queen gasp in a desert banquet hall in 1979. Not at a grand state occasion. At a warm, human, emotional evening for ordinary people who had carried the country through the pandemic. Elizabeth was saying something very specific about Kate with that choice. This is the woman who understands what really matters. This is who these sapphires belong to. Camilla never wore a single piece from that suite. Not the earrings, not the necklace, not the bracelet, nothing. That was the second piece. 2 pieces so far. Philip's bracelet, the sapphires that made Elizabeth gasp. Both of them gone to Kate. Camilla never even knew they were being decided. I want to stop here because the next piece is the one. The one that involves Diana. And it is the most emotional of everything I am about to tell you. Are you ready? Tell me in the comments what you think is coming. The third piece is the one nobody talks about. But it is the one that changes everything. In the 1970s, the Japanese government gives Elizabeth a gift of pearls during a state visit. She loves them so much, she has them made into a 4-stranded pearl choker necklace and a matching bracelet. Fresh, modern, completely hers. She wore them privately, at events that meant something to her personally, not just official occasions. Now here is the part that matters. November 1982. A state banquet at Hampton Court Palace. Diana walks in. Around her throat, Elizabeth's Japanese pearl necklace. At her wrist, the matching bracelet. On her head, the lover's knot tiara. In her ears, the Bahrain pearl earrings. Elizabeth dressed Diana in her most personal pearls before she ever wore them publicly herself. That was not a coincidence. That was Elizabeth making a statement. You belong here. These are our pearls, and they look right on you. 40 years later, Diana is gone, but the pearls are still here. And Elizabeth had the same message for someone else. Camilla joins the family in 2005. The pearls that Diana wore, the pearls Elizabeth commissioned herself, never offered to Camilla, not once, in 17 years. And then November 2017, Windsor Castle. Elizabeth and Philip are celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary. 70 years together, their most private, most personal family dinner. Elizabeth loans Kate the Japanese pearl necklace for the very first time. Not at a state banquet, not at a formal gala, at the most intimate celebration of her entire marriage. That choice was deliberate. That choice was everything. But what came next was even more powerful. The 17th of April, 2021, Windsor Castle, Philip's funeral. The whole world is watching. The family is gathered in the smallest, most heartbreaking version of themselves, constrained by pandemic rules. Just a handful of people in a chapel saying goodbye to a man who had given his entire life to this family. Kate stands there in black, quiet, dignified, carrying the weight of the moment on her shoulders. At her throat, the Japanese pearl necklace, the same necklace Diana wore at Hampton Court in 1982. At her ears, the Bahrain pearl earrings, Elizabeth's most personal pieces. To say goodbye to Philip, Camilla was not wearing those pearls. Kate was. And then the 19th of September, 2022, Westminster Abbey and Windsor Castle, the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II herself. The most watched moment in British royal history in decades. The entire world stopped. Kate walked in, George and Charlotte beside her, William beside her, the Japanese pearls at her throat again, the Bahrain earrings again, the bracelet on her wrist. Elizabeth's most personal pieces. At Elizabeth's own funeral. 2 funerals. The same pearls. The same woman. Diana wore them first. Kate wore them to say goodbye to Philip. And then, to say goodbye to Elizabeth. Camilla was invisible both times. There are no words for what that means. But there do not need to be. Elizabeth already said everything. In pearls. In silence. across 40 years. The fourth piece is the most romantic of all. April 1923. The Duke of York, the man who would one day become King George VI, marries Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. As a wedding gift, he gives her a beautiful necklace. She loves the diamonds and pearls, but she wants something different, something she can wear on her head. So she takes her husband's wedding gift apart. Every stone from that necklace is transformed into a tiara, the lotus flower tiara. Made from a husband's love, built by a wife's own vision, worn on her head for the rest of her life. A crown built from love. The Queen Mother passes it to Princess Margaret in 1959 as a personal gift. Margaret loves it. In 1993, she loans it to her son's new bride to wear on her wedding day. Every woman who wore this tiara was beginning something, entering the family through joy. Margaret dies in 2002. The tiara goes back to the royal vault. Camilla joins the family 3 years later. 8 years pass. The tiara sits there, never offered. Not once. Elizabeth could have given it to Camilla. There were plenty of occasions where it would have been completely appropriate. She chose not to. Every single time. Because she had already decided. The 3rd of December, 2013. Buckingham Palace. The annual diplomatic reception. Kate's very first one as a member of the family. Elizabeth puts the lotus flower tiara on Kate's head. Not her 5th reception. Not after years of building up to it. Her very first one. The crown built from a husband's wedding gift. The tiara passed from mother to daughter as an act of private love. Elizabeth put it on Kate, the first chance she had. Camilla never wore it. In 17 years, not once. A crown built from love always for Kate, never for Camilla. 4 pieces. All of them the most personal things Elizabeth ever owned. Philip's love, the sapphires she gasped at, Diana's pearls, a husband's wedding gift. All gone to Kate. But the 5th piece is the one that proves Elizabeth's plan survived even her own death. The 5th piece is the one that changed everything. The Oriental Circlet, designed by Prince Albert for Queen Victoria in 1853. 2,600 diamonds, deep red rubies, Mughal arches sweeping across the top. The most important Victorian-era piece in the entire royal collection. This is not just a beautiful tiara. This is the crown of the British matriarch. The piece that says, "I am the woman who holds this family together." The Queen Mother wore it constantly. Her absolute favourite. When Elizabeth inherited it, she wore it exactly once. In Malta, in 2005. And then she locked it away. The same year, Camilla joined the family. Think about what that timing means. Camilla arrives. Elizabeth wears the Oriental Circlet once, and then it disappears into the vault for 20 years. Camilla attended hundreds of formal events over those 20 years. State banquets, diplomatic receptions, the most glittering occasions in the royal calendar. The Oriental Circlet, which she had every technical right to wear as a senior royal, never appeared on her head. Not once. Elizabeth was leaving it empty, leaving it waiting, a vacancy created entirely on purpose. Then Elizabeth dies in September 2022. Camilla becomes queen. She finally has access to everything. The game is over, or so the world was told. The 3rd of December 2025, a state banquet at Windsor Castle for the President of Germany. The doors open. Kate walks in. On her head, the Oriental Circlet, Queen Victoria's crown, 2,600 diamonds blazing under the lights. The biggest tiara Kate has ever worn. The most significant piece in the entire Victorian collection. Kate is not yet queen. She is Princess of Wales. And she is wearing the crown reserved for queens, while the actual Queen Camilla is standing in the same room wearing something else. Royal commentators called it shocking, jaw-dropping, unprecedented. But it was not shocking at all. Elizabeth locked that tiara away the year Camilla arrived. She left it empty for 20 years. She set it aside, like she set aside the bracelet and the sapphires and the pearls and the lotus flower tiara for the woman she had already chosen. Charles opened the vault and put it on Kate's head, because that is what Elizabeth spent 20 years arranging. Kate wore Queen Victoria's crown. Camilla did not. That is Elizabeth's final word, delivered 3 years after her death. Elizabeth never made a speech about this. She never said out loud what she truly felt about Camilla, about Kate, about who this family's future belonged to. She did not have to. Philip's bracelet, built from Russian royal diamonds. Kate, the sapphires that made her gasp, redesigned with her own hands. Kate. The pearls Diana wore first at both funerals. Kate. The tiara built from a husband's love on Kate's head at her very first formal occasion. Queen Victoria's crown on Kate's head while Camilla sat as queen. 5 pieces. Every single one the most private thing Elizabeth ever owned. Every single one given to Kate. Not one, ever, offered to Camilla. That is not an accident. That is not tradition. That is Elizabeth, speaking in the only language she ever used for the things that truly mattered. Diamonds. Silence. 20 years of certainty. Camilla has the crown, but Elizabeth made sure that everything she actually loved went somewhere else. If this confirmed what you always believed, subscribe, because there is more. Elizabeth left behind more stories than any single video can hold, and every one of them says the same thing. The vault goes deeper, and we are going to open every door.